it was underdeveloped, it lacked any kind of infrastructure, and in fact, it had very little foreign direct investment flowing into Ireland. And Ireland took a conscious decision to open up their economy, to deregulate, and to make their economy technologically savvy and friendly. And as a result of the Irish experience, they were able to up their living standards in Europe so substantially that Ireland today occupies about the top echelon, the top 1 or 2 positions in living standards in Europe itself, and one of the top in the world for that matter. That's coming from nowhere to being the 4th most globalized country in the world. The United States, of course, for all of your doomsayers about the United States still occupies position number 3 as one of the most globalizing countries in the world. Switzerland, not surprisingly, number 2. And again, I haven't been given a budget in this particular talk to ask you whether you can predict which country in the world has been ranked as the most globalized country in the world. Any guesses? Japan, China, India, one more? No, wrong. Well, I'm pleased because there's no prize, and I can't even give the prize. The winner, in fact, of the most globalized country in the world is Singapore. Singapore wins, and it's won. Ireland won the year before. Singapore has won this particular year. Singapore, of course, small, easy to manage, a relatively easy country, of course, to get a result. But you might ask, where is South Africa in the globalizing world? Well, as it happens, we are number 49 in the list of countries, and they rank about 70 or 80 countries in this particular survey. The rest, frankly, are not worth ranking in terms of being part of the globalizing game. South Africa is number 49. What's interesting about South Africa is that it falls behind some other important countries on our doorstep. Example is ranked substantially higher than South Africa. Senegal, as well. All of those countries rank higher than South Africa. I'm fortunate enough, indeed, to have traveled to many of these countries, in particular to Chile. And I don't know how many people in this room have been to, anybody been to Chile in this room? No one's been to Chile, an absolutely marvelous country. And a country that takes itself very, very seriously in making sure that it deregulates its economy as far as possible. And the point I want to make, and I'll labor the point time and time again, is that we are in a competitive environment. When Chile in South America, a country that none of us have visited here in this room, when Chile wants to make itself popular in the world, it deregulates. Costa Rica in Central America has one of the highest literacy rates anywhere in the world. And remember the term literacy, I'm going to come back to this issue in a second. One of the highest literacy rates anywhere in the world. It's almost 100% literacy rate in Costa Rica, a highly educated population. That's why they rank highly in these particular surveys. Our competition in Africa, Botswana and Mauritius, rank substantially higher than South Africa as it is as well. So we have, of course, challenges to face. And our challenge isn't just tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Our challenge is, of course, much broader than that. Now, I'm not sure whether this applies to this industry as it does to many other industries, but we in South Africa love acronyms. ASGISA. Of course, all of you know what ASGISA stands for. And I'm sure if I did an exam with all of you here, you would all get 100% of what it stands for. Just in case there are 1 or 2 of you that don't know what ASGISA stands for in this audience, it is the Accelerated and Shared Growth Initiative for South Africa, a really mouthful of words which simply argue that we have a plan to improve our economy, a plan to make us more competitive, which I think is very commendable. And that plan suggests that our GDP growth moves from its current 5%, a little bit below that now, but 5%, to 6% and hopefully 7-8%. We should be growing at about 8 to 10% per annum if we want to keep pace with our population and if we wish to be competitive internationally. ASGISA calls for us to reduce unemployment and halve poverty by 50% by the year 2014. This is a very ambitious plan, sounds a little perhaps too ambitious, but it is entirely plausible. Here is the rub. So let me get to some of the problem issues that we face. 50% of South Africa's black population, according to the figures just released by the South African Institute of Race Relations, live below the international poverty level, 50%. Official unemployment in South Africa is down, but still at 25.6%. That's the better figure. There's a worse figure, which includes those in the second or informal economies. And if we add on those, we're looking at well over 30% unemployed. The really nasty statistic is the third one on the board. Of all 18 to 24-year-olds in South Africa, 18 to 24-year-olds, 50% of this group are unemployed. And that has serious consequences socially for us going forward. And of course, all of you are too aware of the fact that we all live in greater degrees of debt. I might add, this is not just a function of South Africa, it's a function of developing economies all over. One of our key problems is a skills shortage. You know, the topic has been covered. I know you're going to have another speaker later on this morning on skills. But the fact that we have insufficient skills, and again, it's not just our problem, and I've got a nice slide coming up to show you that it's not just our problem, but this skills shortage will affect our growth, and it will affect our government's very promising intentions to spend now about 400 billion rand on infrastructural projects, long-delayed infrastructural projects, finally, over the next few years. We've got a shortage. It's put at about 500,000, 500, perhaps a bit more, 500 to 600,000 skilled jobs, particularly in the public sector, are lacking. That's where our skills are lacking extensively. And as part of your exam at the end of this particular conference, the acronym that I like to point out again, I've spoken to you about as GISA, the acronym JIPSA, J-I-P-S-A, the Joint Initiative on Priority Skills Acquisition, is indeed a positive acknowledgement by the government that this is a critical area for South Africa to address, and JIPSA is out there to indeed alleviate the skills problem. Where does the problem come from? About 850,000 white South Africans, again according to the Institute of Race Relations, have left South Africa since 1995. That's almost 1 million white South Africans have left South Africa, mostly skilled and mostly in the age group between 20 and 40. And you know, if you look at one of these demographic charts of South Africa, and you know there's a normal population distribution in a country, there are more younger people, and then the sort of the bars decline like this as you get older, and sometimes spread out. You'll see that if you look at the white population of South Africa, there's been a diminution of the 20 to 40 age group in the country. It's quite unnatural as a result of the sustained immigration, people leaving and taking advantages of opportunities elsewhere. And it's not just an issue amongst the white population group. Increasingly, and this is a new trend, we are seeing internal immigration of blacks. When I talk about internal immigration, I mean that skilled blacks who might have been employed in the public sector are slowly but very surely moving out into the private sector, thus denuding the public sector of skills. And if you visit the South African expatriate communities around the world, and in Los Angeles, as we briefly spoke about in the introduction, where I do a lot of work with those expat communities, the groups that I speak to, you know, you feel that when you go to speak to an expat community in Toronto or in Los Angeles or in London, it's all going to be white middle-class faces from Sandton or Houghton or Rosebank or Camps Bay, for that matter. Well, it's actually not. Those expat communities around the world are now made up of all different racial groups, blacks, whites, colored, Indians. They are all sitting, and many of them outside of South Africa as well.